This is Mark Fisher with Mark and the Millennials, and the Millennials joining me today are Andrew the Fuji Fulginiti, Ryan the Squirrel Brady, and our producer, Adam Katura. How's everybody doing?
Good.
Yeah.
Ready for 4th of July.
Absolutely. And today we're talking about Antifa, they're back, and Hispandering, and the dumbest bill in America. First up, the Antifa mob in Portland, Oregon attacks conservative journalist Andy Ngo while police stand down. We have a clip on this with Andy. Let's hear this.
They were chanting no fear, no hate, and then suddenly I was bashed in the back of the head. And before I could really figure out what just happened to me, the punches just kept coming in every direction. And then eventually they escalated it to throwing liquids in my face that blinded me, so I couldn't even see which way to leave. And I could still see the Justice Center in the background, and I kept thinking the police were going to come and help me at any moment. But that never happened.
So the police stood down and watched him being beaten up by Antifa, which I guess stands for anti-fascist. And what do you guys think about this? They're back. Antifa is back.
It's just sad to see just fellow Americans versus fellow Americans actually being violent amongst each other. Granted, that's a little bit of a naive position to have because it's not realistic, but I always wish that we weren't violent towards each other, and this is another sad instance of it. And with the Antifa, they were mixing, like I think there was a police report that said they mixed Quickcrete in the milkshakes they were throwing at people. So that's like another level of like they pettiness. Really do want to hurt people that way, and like attacking people when they're running away from you, when they're doing their free journalist jobs.
He had a brain hemorrhage. I mean, he was truly injured.
Brain bleed, yeah. But then he thankfully got released in the hospital, I think, within a few hours or a day or two after that. But
and they covered their faces. I mean,
well, that's what I would describe.
They're cowards.
The example, it's the epitome of a cowardice group. I mean, you don't even know what they stand for. Every time you hear them mention the news, it's because they're just violent. They're attacking people. It's like, what are they actually protesting in favor of? You don't know. And they go out there and they cover their faces. They cover so that they don't want to be known what they're protesting for, quote unquote. And they throw their little Starbucks macchiatos at people. I mean, like I saw people. Yeah, it's like, who are these people? Like they're just there for violence.
Frappuccino.
Are they millennials?
Probably.
A lot of them looked very young. I would say they're
mid-30s,
They're probably
under mid-30s.
in the millennial group and not the.
So they clearly are. I think a lot of them are millennials.
I think so.
I mean, what are they angry about? I mean, they say that they're against fascism. Well, I guess
they're trying to stand against, I think, ultra-right conservatism that almost borderlines like the neo-Nazi groups. But then I think they're getting blinded and doing a broad paint stroke, and they just.
But they're kind of looking neo-Nazi themselves.
Well, they're looking like they're
covering. Yeah.
They're acting like the brown shirts, basically from World War II. And you got honestly think about it this way: you can look at the far right and the far left. Eventually, they all come in the middle, and they look the same to me. And they all need to just back down from where they're holding their positions at. That's my opinion.
I'm not sure it was. I haven't read as much into this one, but I'm not so sure it was the police actually standing down. Weren't they actually directed to not be involved in the riots? Like they weren't just like saying, "Oh, we're not going to help people." I think they were actually directed like by the
mayor.
Yeah,
by the mayor. I mean, that so far the mayor really hasn't granted an in-depth interview about this to talk about it. But he's noted for being obviously a little crazy himself. But I'm just curious why the police would stand down. I mean, if you're seeing something, and of course we weren't there, we didn't see it. We have to be really careful about this.
Right.
We know all the footage is not available. One thing we do know is that this gentleman was beaten up.
And there was a video about it, and it was sad to see.
Absolutely. We also know that Senator Merkley, he's a United States senator from the state. He tweeted out that it's National Adopt a Cat Shelter Month.
While this was going
on. So it's a little weird.
Priorities. Yeah.
Exactly. But it actually was very Orwellian that he did that, because it's like, no, don't look over there. I mean, there's really nothing wrong. You know, the city is being righted upon.
It begs the question, like, what are they hiding? Like, are the people that are, covering their faces, are they Democrats? I mean, what are, like, why turn an eye and try and have people look in a different direction if you're not hiding something?
But like, honestly, I would love to visit Portland because it's a great city. But the fact is, though, are you surprised that this is happening? It's Portland.
Yeah.
That's right.
It's on the coast.
Yeah, but I'm just surprised that a mayor would stand by and do nothing, because one of the major purposes of being a mayor, one of the major responsibilities is public safety.
Yeah, but we've seen this in other places. We saw this in Maryland. It was not too long, 2014. Yeah, the Baltimore riots were going on, and the mayor said, "Let them have their time.
Give them space,
back off, and let them destroy the city."
Which they burned.
So that's a strategy, apparently, to just let them destroy the city because
that's the new Democratic
they're throwing
strategy.
a fit. That's like telling parents saying to their kid, "Oh, just let them punch some holes in the wall. They'll get over it."
Here's my question: is the mayor trying to do a play for the Antifa vote because they probably won't show up to the voting polls? Because they have to show their faces and their ID.
Exactly. Next up, AOC tweets advice to illegal immigrants on how to avoid ICE and subvert U.S. law. We don't have a clip on this because it's a tweet, but she put in her tweet that the Trump administration is going to begin ICE raids across the country, and she decided to retweet something, and it says, "Now is the time for us to come together, check in with your neighbors, share and know your rights. If you see ICE, report it to this number and so forth, so they can come and basically get you and help you with legal advice." And I mean, it's crazy. Basically, she's subverting U.S. law. Gentlemen, thoughts on this?
The language that she's using is fear-mongering. It's inciting fear with the immigrant population, regardless of being legal or illegal. And granted, I've been saying this all the time during the podcast, our immigration system is broken. It needs to be fixed, but there's a long road ahead and a lot of consensus that needs to be happening between both parties to actually solve this issue.
But she's saying that the Trump administration, which is true, the Trump administration did say they're going to go do massive roundups and deportations. But the point is, he's enforcing the law.
Well, the law in the books, yes.
Yes.
And she's a sitting U.S. congressman. She represents the United States of America, and she's tweeting to people that aren't citizens of this country on how to subvert and get around the laws.
Exactly.
Right.
What? It's like, what?
I know.
And we can't help these people. We don't know if they live here. We don't know who they are, so we can't help you, and you can't really necessarily benefit from any service that may be even offered to you as an illegal citizen.
Katora has something, I can tell. The producer's
going to
talk. Oh, here comes the producer.
Does anybody else find it ironic that she's saying, "Hey, here are the laws that you can use to break our other laws"?
Right.
And by the way, I'm a lawmaker, so don't worry about it. It's okay.
Isn't there a big degree of irony in all that?
The laws afforded to citizens, not civilians.
I think what Ryan was saying is that, like, inciting fear, it's like when you do that fear mongering, you're almost incentivizing them to do worst case scenario to subvert the system. Like, who knows what, maybe they will commit crimes to try and get away. You don't know what they're going to do. But if fear makes you do crazy things.
And it's easy to critique how the whole family separation thing happening, and it's how are you supposed to know the kids weren't being used? We didn't have parental DNA tests ready to go, say, let's confirm who you are in genetic match. It's like there weren't systems in place to say, where's the truth here? We don't know what you're telling us.
Yeah, and as the sanctuary policies continue in these two states, primarily New York and California, but there are obviously many sanctuary cities across America. Donald Trump just said the taxpayer pain will likely worsen in New York and California because of their sanctuary policies. And as you bring in all of these folks who need social services, you're going to have to raise taxes in order to be able to support all these people who need social services.
All the neighboring states will take all those new citizens.
And his point was, when you add that, and it compounds with the SALT deduction limitations, the state and local tax deductions that were passed in the Jobs Act a couple of years ago, these states people who pay their taxes can no longer deduct so many taxes as they once were, so it wasn't so painful. It's going to be more painful than ever. And what do you guys think about this? You think there's going to be more of a mass exodus from these states?
Absolutely. I think there will. I mean, they're seeing it in those states like New York. I mean, New York only looks, it's like a facade, right? De Blasio is destroying that city, but it hasn't crumbled yet because of the past leadership. Like, a city can't crumble in in a year or whatever it is, because it's had good, fairly decent leadership, I think, the past two mayors for a while. Mm-hmm. And so De Blasio, but his policies are going to eventually, if they're implemented and to the nth degree, like he's trying to, eventually it will resonate and people are going to flee, and they're already doing it, but I think it's going to be worse.
Absolutely. And they're going to lose. New York is already losing congressmen and congresswomen because of redistricting. They did the last time, 10 years ago, and they are because of population shifts. Parts of the country are growing more. New York is having a net loss of people. This is just going to accelerate that. But who are they losing? They're losing the people that have money, like the middle class, the upper middle class, the wealthy.
The millennials.
The millennials, sure.
A lot of millennials are now moving to suburbs because it's cheaper to live there.
Is that right?
Yeah, I saw. I can't quote the article, so I apologize on that. But some millennials are actually moving out of the cities because the rent's too high.
It's a trend nationwide, because I know, like in Texas too, that's a trend. Like moving Austin, some of those Houston, those bigger cities have gotten so like
people
expensive.
are moving out.
Yeah, millennials just
It's
can't afford it
interesting because
anymore.
as a boomer, that's
too.
what I did. As a boomer after college, the first thing I did was move out of the city because it was just so expensive to live. But you guys, of course, for the most part, were moving into the city.
We're drawn to it, but I think it's getting too expensive.
That's pretty fascinating.
Yeah, it's pretty. Yeah,
absolutely. So next up, Beto. Beto, he is talking about climate change and drought and says it's the reason that there is an increase in illegal immigration to the United States. We have a clip on that. Here's Beto.
And we've got to remember that they are fleeing the deadliest countries on the face of the planet today, compounded by drought that was caused not by God, not by Mother Nature, but by us. Man-made climate change, our emissions, our excesses, our inaction in the face of the facts and the science. When it is that deadly, and when you're unable to grow your own food to feed yourself, you have no choice but to come here.
Yeah, so the reason you're coming here is because of climate change. You're not coming here for economic opportunity. You're not coming here because there are so many social services that are for free. You're not coming because of all the other free stuff that the Democrats are promising. You're coming here because of climate change, because you're so intelligent, you're so intellectual when you're coming from these countries that you've come to the conclusion that that's the reason. I mean, it's nonsense. Gentlemen, please, I want to hear the millennial view on this.
When you sit there and unpack what he just said, if you actually listen to it, like sometimes they talk too fast and you're like, oh, that sounds great, but just think about what he said. He literally said in that statement that man had 100% everything to do. Science, climate had nothing to do with the change in climate. It was 100% man. It's like just based off of that, you're like, this guy is crazy. He's crazy because there's I don't think there's a scientist on this planet that would say that maybe man has a small impact or an impact on climate, but climate change they have over time for billions of years.
Show me the science.
And he's saying, no, man is the sole reason that's happening, that they're fleeing.
Exactly. He's acting like
nuts.
He's Moses. He's talking about, he says, I can see the future and I know everything about there is to know about science. It's just nuts. Squirrel, what do you think?
I just kind of thought that when he was saying it was man's issue, it kind of felt like he was saying it was the USA that was causing it, when actually everything's interconnected.
Oh, so it's always their fault.
It's every developing country because they're using all the fossil fuels, all the cheap stuff. If you want to get into believing that all that stuff is, I tend to lean on that side of it just a bit. But anyways, squirrel moment right there, I guess. But
squirrel,
yeah,
boy.
No, but everything's interconnected. So you have the developing countries using fossil fuels, dirty fuels. They don't have the regulations to use clean scrubbers in their coal-fired power plants. You have China that's booming. You have India that's booming with these billion plus populations that are using more and more and more. Yeah. So,
but how about in Central America and South America and Mexico? They're kleptocracies. I mean, the people that run these countries steal like crazy. I mean, we provide many billions of dollars in aid, and the government.
The states are failed. They're failed. There's no opportunity for growth, and it's just mismanagement. And you could say there were some interventions in the 60s and 70s about this stuff, but it's. I just want to fix those states and people actually have opportunities in those states, because that would be once they're actually stable and actually thriving, it's going to be a great place. But they're run by gangs, corruption, and unfortunately, I don't know how you can change that human condition.
The country that's trying to fix it is Russia, right? They're the ones trying to intervene, and it's like
Venezuela,
Russia was a kleptocracy, and now it's it's oligarchy, but it's like this is more organized stealing, right? It's like I don't think they're gonna they don't have a really good trajectory.
Because it's a few people, not just one.
It's pretty cool.
And Putin says who?
I think the weeks old newly elected El Salvadorian president said it's our fault for not actually providing opportunities for our citizens, and it's our fault for having all our citizens leave our country, because you can't replace people that leave in mass exodus. It takes a long time, generations. You're going to be having a deficit.
So next up, we have the ultimate, and I mean the ultimate human interest story. Okay, we've had a lot of human interest stories, and we try to cover them because they're fun. But this is probably the funniest. In fact, I had to read it 3 times to make sure it was real. It is indeed real because we double checked it. Wisconsin has a serial toilet clogger. You heard that correctly, a serial toilet clogger.
You've piqued my interest.
And he got 100. He was caught, thank goodness, and he got 150 days behind bars plus 3 years probation. We have a clip on this. Here it goes.
It's definitely not your typical investigation. Sheboygan police are looking for a serial toilet clogger. Yep, you heard me right. The suspect is using 20-ounce pop bottles. And he's not just flushing them down the toilet in the women's bathroom here at the DeLand Community Center along Lake Michigan. Rather, he inserts the bottles directly into the pipes over and over again, leaving the city to clean up the mess. And it comes with a hefty price tag that ultimately impacts taxpayers. Sometimes the plastic bottles can't just be flushed out. The city has to remove the toilet entirely. So far, it's cost upwards of $3,000 in fixes. And get this, the suspect has struck more than 30 times in the past 2 years. Now, Sheboygan police have just installed security cameras here.
Oh, boy.
And they can confirm the suspect is an adult male, and he only strikes at night, and he only hits the women's bathroom.
Oh, boy.
The hundreds of people and families who use this park are creeped out and fed up.
Well, no
Very
kidding.
inconsiderate. I don't know where how their nearest bathroom is, but it's nice to be able to have clean bathrooms to be able to use, because the city pays for that
through your taxes
keep it and everything.
So you heard the commentator say pop bottles,
Midwest.
not pot bottles. It's Midwest, so it's pop, like soda pop. And so he's putting soda pop bottles, or Coke bottles, as we would say on the East Coast. He's putting them inside, or soda bottles. Okay, not pop. All right, and he's putting them inside the toilet to clog. That's actually pretty ingenious if that's what you're into. His name's Patrick D. Beeman. He's 26 of Sheboygan. Gentlemen, I want your opinions on this.
Wow.
Too much time on his hands, and we were talking before this. There's a level of stupidity that we don't see. I think we just got a glimpse of that.
All things considered, I guess you could say Sheboygan's lucky. I mean, you could have a lot of bad serial criminals, and this guy just wanted to make it was inconsiderate to women's bathrooms.
Can you imagine? You could arrive at the airport in Sheboygan and you could say, "Welcome to Sheboygan, home to the serial toilet clogger." And then
it's almost
would you like to visit the huge pop bottle?
There's a museum on Main Street.
This is almost like, in Home Alone, the wet bandits. They would literally clog the house drains and flood the house after they rob it.
Yeah, their call sign.
This is a little bit more of on the line of disturbing, and also targeting women's bathrooms. Come on,
yeah,
man.
the women's that is creepy.
I
have to admit. So next up, we have the dumbest bill in America, and we still don't have any music. So
Roll Tide.
the dumbest bill in America. It's in California. What a surprise! Again, California, you keep winning. SB 288, Senator Scott Wiener. That's how you pronounce it, is pushing his bill that allows non-citizens to hold party leadership in the Democratic Party in California. So you can be a non-citizen in California if his bill passes, Senate Bill 288, and you can hold positions of authority in the Democratic Party. Wait a minute, I thought you couldn't vote. We have a clip on this. Clip 1.
We are an inclusive party that embraces immigrants.
That's Scott Wiener. We are an inclusive party that embraces, he says immigrants, but his bill actually deals with folks who are illegal immigrants. They are not documented. They are not legal. And they could hold all kinds of positions throughout the state in the Democratic Party. I want to hear what you guys have to say about that. Gentlemen, millennials.
So I think both parties are inclusive, but I think at the one party that usually is on the right side is more in the base of inclusion in reality than the left. To be honest, because honestly, they talk about the hard facts and try to solve the issues instead of say, "Hey, sunshine and roses on the left. Here you go. Here's your free ticket." But go ahead.
I was just gonna say this is more of that like political pandering towards.
Yep.
It's
well said. It's Hispandering.
I mean, that's a California thing too. I mean, California, and once you, this is also an example of once you start saying, okay, we're gonna allow illegals to do this X, it's gonna expand. You have no options of that because you can't say yes, we're gonna be inclusive and you can live in our communities, and then you have their kids going to schools. You say, oh, you don't get a say in your kid's school. It's like, well, now you have to let them know. It's like this is gonna be so. There's gonna
the Hispandering never ends. It's all about pandering for Hispanics for their vote, but now they're doing it for folks who are illegal.
So with the state senator, he was saying for party office. So that doesn't mean, I'm assuming it's only for like the Democratic Party office.
Correct.
Like, so it's not local, state, or federal positions that are like duly elected officials. This is only within the party. So I don't think that you have to be a citizen.
We have
for
to see the final version of the bill because in theory, maybe there could be electors in the Electoral College that could be illegal immigrants. I would not be surprised. We have to see the final version of the bill because obviously it's not a law yet. But once, if it were to pass, I wouldn't surprise me if they snuck in there the ability of illegal immigrants to be electors in the Electoral College.
Actually, I almost recant my original statement because honestly, if you think about it, if this is for being office within a political party, guess what? It's within the political party itself. It doesn't need to be a state bill. So then this might lead to, as Andrew said, it might lead to having illegal immigrants be holding actual duly elected offices in local, state, and federal elections within that state.
Yeah, well, in San Francisco, I think they already do that, right? I mean, I think we have a clip on that. You have to hear this.
In San Francisco, we have authorized non-citizens who have children in public schools to vote in school board elections. So we were not restricted by the Constitution.
I knew I heard something about school
board. We're
board.
not restricted about the Constitution. We don't, Senator Weiner, we don't have to worry about the Constitution. It doesn't matter what the rules are. Come on, we don't follow rules. We're Democrats.
We need to fix our education system. We got some generations that are lost.
Oh, you think? Exactly. Well, here's my thing. The Democratic Party, which is very concerned about foreign influence in U.S. elections, they want foreign influence in their party organization. I mean, come on. Talk about ironic. It's ridiculous.
Hey, the political machine Tammany Hall, at least they were illegal immigrants back in the early 1800s.
I think the Democratic Party has a lot to fix. I mean, I think this is gonna just starting to in California, but I think this will expand and start causing rifts within their party. But I mean, we've seen that on the debates and everything. Like that party there's a lot of infighting, and it's gonna be interesting to see how it plays out throughout this election cycle.
Yeah, the moderates and are getting hard pressed by the more far left progressives, and they're like saying, I don't know where I find myself in this party.
Exactly. So next up, Stephanie Wilkinson. She's the co-owner of the Little Red Hen. If you recall, this is the lady who kicked out Sarah Sanders when she was trying to dine there one evening because Stephanie Wilkinson believes that even though she's the co-owner of a business, she shouldn't have to serve conservatives or Republicans that she might disagree with. We can all talk about that at some other point, but that's really not what we're talking about this time because she wrote an op-ed in the Washington Post where she said there are new rules that apply. There are new rules that apply to businesses whereby you don't actually have to serve people. Kind of interesting because I thought the whole argument on the other side is that if you own a bakery, you have to serve everyone because we've seen lawsuits about that, about bakeries trying to serve, saying they don't want to serve because they have a religious preference not to serve people who are obviously getting married, who are same-sex couples. But now she's saying, no, I mean, this is a good thing. Interesting. Go.
Restrictions for thee, but not for me. Like, you have to do what the law says, but not me. I can make my own rules. I get my own freedoms.
Exactly.
That's basically what she's saying.
Yes. Go ahead. Squirrel, come on. I want to hear your opinion.
I don't know how
got one on this. I know it.
I don't know how to necessarily unpack this because honestly, the baker won his lawsuit, went to the Supreme Court, right? He won, so he didn't have to make the cake. That's what I thought.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So then the Red Hen owner is now saying, I don't have to serve certain people based on certain characteristics.
Because Eric Trump was spat on, not in her restaurant, but somewhere else, and she was basically saying, that's okay.
Well,
that's okay.
This is an attack on. So I guess you could say conservatism, but I mean it's like you're saying if you have a certain belief system, then we won't serve you anymore.
Right.
Well,
it's so dangerous.
It's segregation, right? It's like liberal only restaurants now.
You're right. It's ideological segregation. But precisely what it is.
But then it comes back to saying, well, if the baker can do that, why can I do that based on ideological grounds? So it opens Pandora's box.
It's a valid argument.
I'm like, really, dude, just make a cake.
She says in her op-ed, the once ubiquitous idea that companies exist purely and solely to provide profit to shareholders is withering away. That's actually a Marxist term, withering away. Like corn husks in the summer sun, she wrote, calling the new standard, all are welcome, but terms and conditions apply.
So do I have to sign a terms and conditions to use the restaurant just in case for acceptable user agreement?
You're right. She might have to put a sign out there.
And I just remember, I think the cake situation was a little bit different in that it wasn't that they turned them away because they were a gay couple. It's because what they wanted them to make some sort of cake where they're like, I don't feel comfortable making that. Where this would be like, this is different because they're just saying, well, I don't want to serve you because of your beliefs.
Just not welcome.
You're just not welcome.
Yeah, okay.
It's not like you're coming in here and making me serve you, I don't know,
And we just saw something like this in Oberlin, right?
Yeah.
Whereby the owners of the bakery, they were welcoming everybody, but then they were falsely accused. And then here we have a situation where somebody is not falsely accusing, she's outright saying, that she's discriminating. It's just incredible. I mean, I hope she gets sued for this.
I just think it really just from all the topics we covered in the instance about this topic, it just seems to me it's like a Pandora's box. We're going to see how it plays out, and there's a very fine line.
It's explosive,
and it's actually no fine box because honestly the line's either or, but it's I don't really know.
Exactly. Next up, Nike nixes the Betsy Ross sneakers after Kaepernick intervenes. Gentlemen, I want you to commentate on this because this is just ridiculous. The background is, of course, that the sneakers had the flag, the colonial flag with 13 stars.
Revolutionary War.
For the Revolutionary War. And Kaepernick, basically calls up someone at Nike, and we don't know who, we don't know the backstory, but clearly he intervened, and he said, this is really racist. It's kind of about slavery.
To him, yeah.
The flag is offensive.
So don't buy the sneakers. I can't believe. I think what's interesting to me is how much sway apparently Colin Kaepernick has with Nike.
He's a spokesman for him.
He's a spokesman for him.
And then he also got a coalition.
He's highly paid.
And he got a coalition of other spokespeople to come in and say no, and then went on on tweeting, and then a lot of people joined, a lot of celebrities. So
Nike's taking sides. They'll just there's
cancel culture.
You've got a market, and there's people that like the flag, so that they won't buy Nike shoes now.
Why not just make all the flags, right? I mean,
they make shoes without flags, right? So buy those. I just don't understand why they can't sell a shoe
100%
because it offends someone.
So here's the crazy thing: the shoes were already shipped to the retail stores, and then Nike sent out an all hands email saying, "Don't put them on the shelves. Return back." But some people did get them, and the shoes retailed for I think about either $125 or $150 on the secondary market. As of last night, they were going between $2,000 and $3,000 per pair.
I bet.
So there's an endorsement on capitalism, supply and demand. There we go.
Somebody needs to go out and buy all those. You know what? We should just go to China and make a lot of fakes. We can just start selling them across the United States. But here's the interesting thing I heard the other day, and that is that the management of Nike has outsourced all of their manufacturing overseas. So they're not the shoes aren't made in the United States anymore, but the company is headquartered in the United States, and they really don't have any kind of real connection to the United States anymore because they don't really need us other than for the market. And I find it kind of interesting that you have this multinational corporation that basically is saying, we don't really consider ourselves to be patriotic. We just could care less. All we care about is the almighty dollar.
Well, if I'm not mistaken, they're headquartered in Seattle, so that kind of explains a lot too.
Right. Well, yeah, they're probably in Oregon with the Antifa folks. Wouldn't be surprised. So anyway, next up, you remember Marianne Williamson on the Democratic stage. You remember how crazy she
that firecracker.
She's a nut. What a nut. But Republicans have put out some directives to please donate money to her so that we can keep her on the stage because she's so entertaining. She's so crazy. And here's why. When asked about what is the first thing that she would do and who's the first person she would call when on stage after becoming president, she said she's going to call, the president of New Zealand? We have a clip
Prime
on
Minister,
that.
Yeah.
And you have to hear this to believe it. Here it is.
I'm going to go down the line here, and I'm asking you, please, for one or two words only. All right? Please. You may only get one shot in your first issue that you're going to push. You get one shot.
Right.
What is that first issue for your presidency? Ms. Williamson,
my first call is to Prime Minister of New Zealand, who said that her goal is to make New Zealand the place where it's the best place in the world for a child to grow up. And I will tell her girlfriend you were so on, because the United States of America is going to be the best place in the world for a child to grow up.
So, hey, girlfriend, America is the best place. Gentlemen, when I saw her, just first of all, the visual, okay? So you heard the audio, but the visual is she looks like someone who's been smoking and involved in a lot of illicit drugs because she just looks completely burned out to me. But nevertheless, she's on the stage. What do you think about this?
I think she said about more than 40 words in that little, 10-second video, less than 10 seconds. Cool, you can call the New Zealand the leader, and that's all well and good. Visit New Zealand, embrace the Maori culture there, and all that. Visit Christchurch and all that fun stuff. But guess what? That's insane.
I'm tempted to donate like $1 just to keep her. Like, she needs a certain amount of individual donors, I believe. I'm kind of tempted. I think this is a great strategy because she was entertaining. I thought she was hilarious.
Absolutely.
And I love to see like someone like that just kind of cause some like wreak some havoc on the Democratic debate stage.
Yes.
Because what was great was like every time she spoke was looking at every other candidate's face. It's like, why am I here on her stage with this woman?
Hey,
like, what is
silver lining. She's making politics very interesting.
She
and I
is.
like it.
And after you guys watched her throughout the debate, what do you think it is that she actually stands for? I can't figure it out.
Peace and love and hope. That's pretty much it.
Peace, love, yeah,
and girlfriends, right? I mean, that's the other thing too.
A Valley girl accent mixed with a Southern accent. I don't know how that became to be. But
it was, wow. I couldn't tell. I thought it was a little bit of like Burnout, Valley Girl, and Southern at the same time. You know, it was like a multi. It's going to appeal to a lot of different groups, at least. So next up, the Dalai Lama repeats his sexist claim. Apparently, he said this before. His successor could be a woman, but it would have to be a hottie in order to fill his sandals. So we have a clip, I believe, and you have to listen closely because obviously it's the Dalai Lama and his English isn't perfect. So here it goes.
You once said that you would be open to a female successor.
That's also possible.
You also told one of my colleagues that female must be attractive, otherwise it's not much use.
Okay, yes.
Can you see why that comment upsets a lot of women?
That was one time. If female Dalai Lama comes, and it should be more attractive. If female Dalai Lama, oh God, dead people, I think prefer not to see a dead face.
Oh gosh.
So she needs to be. Did you hear? What
I think he said she needs it. People would prefer a more attractive Dalai Lama.
attractive face.
He was being considerate.
They don't want to see a dead face.
They don't want to see it be a dead face.
Maybe that was a critique on him. Maybe that's what he was implying. Like he's saying like, oh, like if I was a woman, I'd be an ugly woman. I don't know.
I nominate Marianne Williamson.
Well, I thought he would be lauded because this would be a progressive ideal because I don't think in the history of all Dalai Lama reincarnations there hasn't been a female Dalai Lama. Oh. And honestly, you know what? If that happens, I'll be like, wow, reincarnation is real. That's sweet. Good on you, man.
I think this was the progressives were not happy with this comment.
That he was dictating the attractive features that he would want.
Like if you're going to be a Dalai Lama and an important person, you better be attractive.
Exactly. And part of the thing is this is supposed to be the really cool, kind of out there religion that so many progressives and folks on the left like to associate themselves with. And
or quote the Lama himself.
That's why this didn't go over so well, quite frankly, because, they're like, wait a minute, our spiritual leader is saying that he might be a sexist.
Yeah, because it was very contrary to like everything he talks about and like preaches is kind of interesting.
Exactly.
I think this is an outrage storm for no apparent reason, to be
no
honest.
Doubt.
It's an old guy, spiritual leader dude, and he's just speaking what he thinks. Go figure.
So next up, Florida is in play, we think, in the presidential elections because the Dems, their socialist drift, may jeopardize their voting with the Cuban Americans. Cuban Americans may not vote with the Democrats because of that, because they came from communist countries. The Cuban Americans did, obviously came from Cuba. And of course, so many of those folks remember how awful Cuba was when they lived there. And of course, it's still an awful place to live. Mm-hmm. And it's still run by the communists, and it's still essentially a totalitarian state. And there's a lot of discussion about, what, Florida, the Democrats can try to Hispander all they want, but at the end of the day, Cuban Americans in Florida, and they need Florida to win, the Democrats do. They need Florida to knock out the Republicans from winning and Trump winning again in the presidential election. Well, as long as they continue to move left on socialism, they're not going to win Florida. What do you guys think about that?
I wonder if Trump's going to win Miami-Dade County with the Cuban American population that's heavily influenced there. That'd be very interesting.
Yeah, I think that could help him. I think this is one of many factors in Florida where I think Florida's going to go stay Republican and Trump's going to win it again. That coupled with the fact that DeSantis is just killing it right now in Florida. I mean, he's made some massive reforms that like people love. Like he's killing it on education reform,
school choice.
I think he passed a bill to prevent sanctuary cities.
Yes.
He's done a lot of things down there. I think coupled with the progressives' push for socialism, I think Florida may swing harder this time.
And it's interesting because I think the Democrats believe, and they're wrong about this, and it's because I think they haven't thought it through, is that the Hispanic community is a monolithic community. It's not. It's a very diverse community, and Cuban Americans in particular are very different from the rest of the Hispanic community because it's not just an island that they came from, but the single most brutal communist dictatorship, of course, in the Western Hemisphere, next to probably Venezuela. So, yeah. But at least they have company. I mean, so next up, our tech talk. We have an automated trash can. We don't have any kind of audio or video on this, but you can see it online. They're trying to raise money from Indiegogo, another one of my favorite websites I've talked about before. But it's kind of silly because the trash can basically has ultraviolet light, and it keeps it clean on the inside, and at the same time it ties up the trash bag on the inside for you when you push a button, so that you don't have to touch anything. That's the whole idea. Your hands stay clean with this trash can.
So dainty, this trash can.
Yeah, this is one of those ones where it's like, that's cool technology, I guess. I mean, it's a neat looking thing, but it's almost like this is a first world problem. Like, the woman's complaining about in the video, like taking the trash bag out, and she may have touched some of the trash in the trash. It's like, you're trash. You just put it in there. Like,
it's silly.
Tie up the bag. It's not a big issue. Like, so this thing does it for you. Ties it off. So when you open up the can, you just pick up the bag and walk away.
We are already lazy enough as a society. We don't need to be even more lazier. There needs to be some hard work at the home.
Now, if it were a robot trash can that would take the trash out for you, that I think would be really cool, right?
That's
because
next.
The robot ties it up and then he walks it out to the trash can, and the dog follows the robot.
Alexa, take out the trash.
And and then that robot's connected to the internet. Someone hacks it and it comes does some bad things.
Exactly.
Thanks, Cyber Guy. Way to ruin it for us.
You're welcome.
Well, that's it for Mark and the Millennials. I want to thank you for joining us. This is Mark Fisher. Thank you to Andrew, Fujiniti, Ryan the Squirrel Brady, and our producer, Adam Katora. Check us out on YouTube and Facebook. We'll see you next time.